All of the garlic breads that follow are based on the very same garlic butter and easy to make yeasted bread dough. Of the infinite ways to combine the two, I'd like to share a few of mine. Roll it! Anybody can spread garlic butter atop a split baguette and pop it under the grill, and it's delicious. You can even roast the bulb first if you wanted. But us home bakers, we do things differently, don't we? We create something the world has never seen before, using our right to play with the principles and our imagination. We'll talk about the best way to keep these fresh at the end, but for now, cut to the table. For this, we start by making a very small amount of white bread dough. Mix 3 grams of dry yeast with 160 grams of room temperature water to soften. Add 250 grams of strong white bread flour and 4 grams of sea salt is plenty. And mix together before turning out onto your table with 0 dusting flour. You knew that already, I know, but for those of you who are new, welcome. And don't dust, just trust me. It will change your life forever, I promise. Instead, get yourself a Bake with Jack dough scraper to loosen the dough from the table every once in a while, should you need to, while you knead for 8 minutes. Cover and rest for 1 to 1.5 hours. While it's resting, make a garlic butter. Mix a whole block of butter, that's 250 grams, with 3 grated cloves of garlic. I don't need to tell you to peel it, do I? A tablespoon or 2 of chopped thyme leaves and a pinch of salt. Taste it, that's important. It needs to be punchy to get the flavour through the bread when you eat it. Nice one. I always make a whole batch like this. If you've got some left over, which you will, you can roll it into a sausage and keep it into the fridge. Or you can slice that sausage into thick coins, pop them in a box in your freezer, and then you've got them for garlic butter emergencies. A pan sauce finisher, atop a fillet of fish before baking, you know, it's useful, kitchen standard. Garlic bread number 1 will be this one from my book, Bread Every Day. Divide your dough into 2 pieces and roll them into balls. Pop them on the side with a little bit of dust and let them rest under a cloth for 10 to 15 minutes to make the next part easier. While you're waiting, get yourself a small baking tray and line it with some parchment paper. After your bread dough has relaxed, pop them on a flour dusted table and push each one flat with your fingertips into a disc. Get yourself a rolling pin. Roll each piece out with a rolling pin into a square-ish shape by rolling the middle one way and then the other. Those 4 bumps on the corners become the corners when you roll them outwards, and then you're pretty much there, or as close as you can be. Take a generous amount of your garlic butter and, from a height, because it's fun, put it in the middle of your bread dough, both pieces. Yeah. Then with the flat side of your dough scraper, spread it all out right up to the top, right up to the side edges, but stop just shy of the bottom edge. You need a little plain patch for it to stick onto later. Now grate over a whole load of cheese. I'm going for pecorino here because I love it, it's delicious. And some cheddar cheese too for another cheese dimension. Be liberal here, creating a thick blanket of cheese and then pat it down slightly with your palms to stick. Starting at the top edge, roll it all up into a kind of Swiss roll. Pull out the bottom corners, I'll turn it around so I can show you, and then squeeze that seam shut. Roll it with your palms up and down the table to even it all out nicely, and do the same exactly with the second piece. Now you have 2 long sausages, dust them with flour. Get yourself a sharp blade, and you might want to transfer it onto a chopping board at this point. I didn't, because I'm just here in the studio, it's fine. Slice each sausage all the way down the middle, revealing those layers of cheese and butter inside. Then kind of arrange them back to back. Twist them round one another in pairs all the way down to the other end, with all those layers showing open on the top. Place them into your tray and use another upturned tray or a proving cloth on the top. Let them prove for an hour to an hour and a half, get them real nice and puffy. Preheat your oven to about 200 degrees C fan, that's 425 degrees Fahrenheit. When your dough is nicely puffed, pop it in the oven. Bake it with steam, as usual, for 30 to 35 minutes. Bring it out of the oven once it's golden and spread liberally some more garlic butter over the top, which will melt into the bread nicely. A little sprinkle of sea salt is a good idea as well. And take a look at that. Wonder to yourself why it doesn't look exactly like the one in the book, and it's because you didn't really follow the recipe. You just kind of did your own thing because, yes, I am that guy. Are you that person? Just ignores the instructions, just goes with it? Oh yeah, I got that. I'll just do, yeah, I got it. Nice though, nonetheless. Let's move on to garlic bread number 2. I always used to scoff at the idea of making monkey bread. Like, oh, no, that's not the proper way to make bread. And then I made it, and guess what? It's wicked delicious. Have a look. This time you're gonna get yourself 50 grams of your garlic butter and put it into a large mixing bowl. Pop it in the microwave, just enough to melt it, not enough to explode it all over the inside of your microwave, which is a fine line. Get yourself a 22cm enamel pie dish and line it with a piece of parchment paper. This time after your dough is nicely puffed up, you're going to get it out onto some flour and use the flat side of your dough scraper to cut it. Chop it into 3cm squares or cubes, something like that. This is really pleasing. It's like when you're chopping up gnocchi. Have you done that before? Toss them all a little bit of flour together so they don't stick and pop them in your bowl with your melted garlic butter. Get yourself a big spoon and toss it all around to coat the outside of every piece of dough in that butter, and then spoon it into your pie dish, leaving some butter in the bottom of the bowl for later. Arrange the pieces in a pleasing, kind of organised manner as much as you can. Pop another pie dish on top to create your proving chamber and leave it on the side for 1 to 1.5 hours to puff up nice and big. Preheat your oven during this time, and when it is puffy, it's going to look like this. Woohoo! Yeah. Nice. At this point, I like to season with a bit of crunchy sea salt flakes before baking at 220 degrees for 20 minutes with steam, like you normally do. And here it is when it comes out. Yeah, then guess what we're gonna do? Yeah, you got it. That butter that you left inside the bottom of your bowl, melt it again if you need to, and brush it all over the top so it soaks into those cracks and gives a nice sheen to the top. Finally, shave some Parmesan or pecorino over the top because you just can't resist it. This one's really nice to put in the middle of the table, and you can kind of pick out, help yourself and kind of pick out chunks of it, which is nice. Oh, yeah! Knots next. I'm not going to pretend I invented this. I saw it and I was like, oh yeah, kind of like a dough ball style thing. Put them in a big pile in the middle of the table and just, yeah, you know. Take your puffy dough onto your floured surface and press it down with your fingertips. Mark it out into 16 kind of equal shaped pieces. You don't have to be too faffy about it. You can if you want to, if you're that way inclined. Cut into 4 one way and 4 the other way, and that's 16, isn't it? I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, it is. Clean the table with excess flour. It makes the next part really difficult if there's dust everywhere. And then just roll them along with your palm like this. Roll them all and line them all up. When they're all done, give them a good dusting so they don't stick to each other or stick to the table. Get yourself a large tray and line it with parchment paper so that nothing sticks, and tie each of your dough ropes into a knot. A simple knot is fine. I'm literally just tying it into a knot. And then with the end pieces, I'm tucking them underneath so nobody can see, otherwise they look, yeah, you know what they look like. I'm not going to say it out loud. Line them all up in a very, very pleasing fashion. Cover with a cloth and let prove for about an hour. When they're all nice and puffy, you're going to bake them about 220 degrees C for 12-15 minutes till they take on a bit of nice colour. Use steam as well to help them get crispy and golden. Then when they're done and they're still hot, get them straight out into a large mixing bowl and add a generous amount of your garlic butter to the bowl, which will melt in the residual heat as you mix them all together with a spoon. Get yourself a nice plate and a piece of crinkled paper to make this look wonderful on the dinner table, and pile up all those garlic shiny buttery knots. Drizzle over the last extra little bit of garlic butter if you like. And because you can't resist, pecorino or Parmesan finely grated, a blanket atop your beautiful knots. Yeah, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Are they nice? Yeah, they are. This is nice for like snacking, like for pre-dinner, right? Just a little nibble with a little bowl of olives and a glass of cold white wine or whatever you like. I don't know, green juice. Baked camembert is a triumph, isn't it? For dipping bread into, but what if I put the camembert on top of the bread dough and then baked it? I was thinking that too. This time, turn your dough out onto your dusted side and just gently press it down with your fingers and knuckles. Cut it into 8 pieces and roll each piece into a ball. Line them all up on your side in a pleasing manner and rest them there, dusted, under a cloth for 10-15 minutes. While you're waiting, get yourself a whole camembert and use a knife to mark out 8 kind of equal size cubes out of that middle strip, if that makes sense. So hopefully it will when I cut it. Cut the two sides off and stash them back in the fridge for camembert emergency when you're going to stuff that into a warm baguette next time you bake or something when no one's looking. Baker's perks. And cut that middle rectangle into the cubes you need. Set them to one side. Line a baking tray with parchment paper and now take a rolling pin to roll your dough balls into kind of thick rounds. Line them up all on your tray and use the back of a spoon to spread a little bit of garlic butter into the middle of each. Followed by your cube of camembert, another little blob of garlic butter on the top, and a little pinch of black pepper. Cover with a few slices of dusted cling film and let that rest for an hour or so while you preheat your oven to 220 degrees C. Pop them into the oven and bake them with steam for 15 minutes or so. One thing to note as you put them in the oven and they start to warm up, they'll kind of rise and dome up a little bit. So use the back of a spoon just to indent that middle so it doesn't dome up and all the cheese fall off the edges. Fresh from the oven, check it out, these little camembert buns, isn't that lovely? Here we're using a straight up white dough to make everything here super easy, but if you wanted to, you could take this to the next level by using enriched doughs or even Japanese milk bread and stuff like that. It's wicked. Yeah, delicious, molten garlicky butter camembert center, a little bit of crispy cheese around the edges. Yeah, we like this one. And before we carry on, two things to let you know quickly. If you're new here, you might like to sign up for the Home Bakers Bulletin. It's a weekly email delivered to your inbox for free with all my bread making content from the week. And if there's equipment you might need for your bread making at home, take a look at the Bake with Jack online shop for bits and bobs that are useful and practical. Visit bakewithjack.co.uk/shop. Back to me. One for you stone bakers out there, the garlic pizza bread, also mentioned in my book, Bread Every Day. It's lighter than a cloud because of the immediate heat offered up by stone baking, puffing up the edge, and the relatively short baking time. I must admit, this is probably one of my favorites. Come on. This time after your dough is puffed up, you're going to make 2 balls out of it, leave them on a tray with an upturned tray on top and let them puff up a second time. Get your oven on, nice and hot. Mine I think was on 240 degrees. Baking stone in there already, really, really hot, ready to bake. When your pizza balls have puffed up, here's what you're going to do. I dipped mine both sides in a box of coarse ground semolina because it offers a really nice crunch to the final bread, which combined with that soft, light dough is wicked delicious. Very carefully with your fingertips, you're going to dimple the top surface. You're not going to flatten it, you're just going to dimple it, keeping that air bubbles inside. Can you see them? All those little dimples and pockets of air surrounding them. Then, carefully, you're going to pick it up and stretch it out just a little bit into a disc around 20-25 centimeters wide. See what I'm talking about with those bubbles? We've retained the bubbles in there because it's those bubbles that are going to jump in the oven and make this really light. Transfer each disc to a piece of parchment paper to make it easier to get into the oven in a bit. Garlic butter next, use the back of a spoon to spread a little bit of garlic butter all over the top. Once again, being careful not to put any additional pressure on there and lose that gas. Here I have a mixture of grated cheddar cheese and mozzarella like you might do for a pizza that I'm gonna sprinkle on the top. Slide a peel underneath your garlic bread pizza and transfer it onto the hot stone in the oven where it's gonna bake for about 6 minutes. After that time, it's gonna be real puffy and real bubbly and kind of sizzling. It's gonna be well nice. Oh my gosh. Slide it immediately onto a cooling rack. You can't eat this straight away anyway. It's literally burning hot. It will take the roof off your mouth. So let it sit to take that excess heat away. You still want to eat it while it's warm, obviously. And when you do, just rip that down the middle. Stringy cheese, super soft dough. It's so hot. Oh my gosh, it's delicious. I accidentally ate a whole one of these while I was filming this clip. Just completely by accident. Didn't even realize it happened. Delicious. Pardon? What if we mixed garlic butter with cheese and stuffed a baguette with it before we baked it? Nice idea. Let's try it. At this quantity of dough, you'll get 4 kind of nice size cheesy garlic bread baguettes. So divide your dough after puffing and roll them into 4 balls the same size. Rest them up again for 10-15 minutes so they relax enough, ready for the shaping. And while you're waiting, in a bowl, mix 30 grams of your garlic butter with 30 grams of grated cheddar and mozzarella from earlier, or any other cheeses that you like. I use these 2 because they're kind of firm and then so it won't be too liquid in the final baguette and there'll be less risk of it bursting out all over the place, making a big mess. Now take all of your dough balls on a dusted side and press them out flat with your fingertips. Roll them slightly into a disc with a rolling pin. Aim for around 15 centimeters wide. Take a quarter of your mixture and place it on the middle of each dough disc and kind of flat them out long ways. Then begin to roll up your baguettes from that top edge, encasing that garlic, butter, cheese mixture inside. Squeeze up the seam to stick and any other areas where you see cheese popping out. Roll it with your palms nice and long and taper the edges with a little pressure from your side of your palms. Dust them nicely with flour and transfer them onto a parchment lined tray. And then with a sharp blade or a grignette, you're going to make 3 scores in the top. Score down deep enough so you can see the cheese, ideally, because then it will open up and get a nice bubbly cheese inside. Yeah. Cover them with a proving cloth and leave them to the side to puff up nicely for an hour to an hour and a half. Preheat your oven to 220 degrees while you are waiting, and I baked my little baguettes for 17 minutes. And afterwards, they look like this. A thin, soft crust on the outside and stuffed inside with that molten cheese and butter mixture. Yeah, this is another one you're in danger of eating when it's too hot. Don't do that. Don't do that. Just let it sit for a little minute. Just don't burn your tongue off. Look at that cheese inside. Just look. Often inspiration for me comes from a thing to bake the bread in. A friend of mine bought me a lovely dish for my 21st birthday and I still have it now, 2 years later. This one's good for ceremoniously marching from the kitchen, placing centre table where your guests are already sat, ready to be ripped apart. This time we're going to cut the dough into 16 pieces. It's really nice for this one to get them all exactly the same size. So weigh your dough as a whole and divide that number by 16. Cut your dough into a long piece. Guesstimate where you want to cut your size and then weigh each piece as you go. Then roll them into balls. It's going to be quite tricky because they're so small, and line them up on a little bit of flour so they don't stick to the table. Now you're going to get a block of cheddar cheese and cut it into strips. I don't know how much you'll need. You'll find out later. So just do loads of it. We'll have a look. Spread a little bit of butter on the bottom of your dish. My one's about 20 centimeters square. And arrange your dough balls in 4 lines of 4. Pop a little bit of garlic butter onto the top of each one before using those cheese strips to create a kind of barrier between every bun. Cover once again with dusted cling film and leave for an hour to an hour and a half for them to puff up nicely while you preheat your oven to 220 degrees C. When your rolls have puffed up all lovely like this, pop them in the oven. You're going to bake them for 18 minutes. The cheese will melt down all nice and the butter will get all bubbly and soak into the bread rolls. When it emerges from the oven nice and golden, get yourself a little bit extra garlic butter and use a pastry brush to brush the top so it all soaks in, bringing flavour and a nice sheen to the top. Sprinkle with a little flaky sea salt for crunch and you're done. Try to resist diving in when everything is too hot, for you will burn the tips of your fingers.
Ooh, magma!
Although I know it's difficult. When you do take it to the table, make sure you get the corner ones because they're well crispy on the edge. Look at that. Nice one. Because they're all bunched up together, that'll keep it really soft and moist on the inside. You get those little ripped edges that we all love, don't we?
Yeah.
To keep these garlic breads for a few days, keep them in an airtight plastic container or bag and always bring them back to life in the oven for 10 minutes or so just to bring that freshness back on the outside and melt the cheese and butter again. All of these breads are freezable. Remove them from whatever you bake them inside, pop them in a Ziploc bag and put them in your freezer. When you need one, leave it on the kitchen side overnight, ready for the morning if you're eating garlic bread in the morning. Or get it out in the morning, ready for the evening. Again, always put it back in the oven, like 200 degrees for 8, 10, 12 minutes to bring that freshness back. Thanks for being here. Thanks to all patrons and thanks for super thanks droppers too. I hope you got some value out of this video and some ideas of combining bread dough and garlic butter because they are, like I said before, infinite. I hope you enjoyed this one and I look forward to seeing you again very soon. See ya. Bye-bye.